So welcome to the Friggin News Lady channel. And tonight we are going to be talking about resumes because contrary to what people believe that unemployment rate is low, it's not low. It's just that unemployment has run out. So people aren't filing anymore. So there's a lot of unemployed people. And tonight I brought with me a guest, Dina Graham from Ronstadt from New York City. She's a recruiter. And she's going to be giving us some tips on what recruiters look for in resumes. Because if you're anything like me, you've sent out hundreds of resumes and either you're getting ghosted, they seem like they're interested and they don't reply, or they don't reply and you know you're fully qualified for the position. So welcome to the show, Dina.
Thank you so much, Nikki.
So quick question. When you are given resumes, what is something that you look for automatically in a resume? Because I take it a lot of recruiters that they just skim them because you get so many. So what is something that really just pops out on a resume for you that would catch your eye to make you want to read it?
Part of it is the layout. It sounds really bright, but a resume that's really cluttered is hard to read. I try to read all of them, just trying to be a different kind of recruiter. But honestly, if you had hundreds of resumes coming in, the ones that are 2-point type with everything crammed on them are really hard to read. So you're going to go for the one that has a little more white space. Things are bulleted. There's I guess a lot of space aesthetically.
So a lot of it has to do with the layout and the cleanliness of it. Is there a rule that maybe it shouldn't be more than 1 or 2 pages? I hear a lot of conflicting stories that it could be 3 pages. It just depends.
Everybody has their own idea, and just so you know, my background, I was in marketing communications for many, many years. I just started recruiting. And when I was looking for a job just 3 months ago, I would read these articles and I kept changing my resume. And finally, I'm like, you know what? I've had enough. I'm just going to do what I think I should do. And I ended up doing other people's resumes for money. And how I did it was, it's not just, the resume has a lot of white space and it's easy to read, but it's also highlighting your skills. So for those of us that have been in our field for a long time, we tend to want to put everything on a resume, and the thing is, the resume doesn't get you in the door for the interview. So you want to highlight your skills, that means software skills, any of your accomplishments. So what I usually tell people is on that front page at the very top, you want to put skills. That's, whether you use Adobe, any software skills like that, Salesforce.com, creative websites where you work on social media, you those up there as well. It's obviously everybody uses, especially if you do events, you're doing invites on email. Any of those platforms you put up there. Plus, some of your highlights of your career that you're most proud of, your achievements. Not defining yourself by your title or what industry you're in, but what were those projects you worked on that you were most proud of? Those are the things that when you read, I know who you are. Does that make sense?
No, absolutely. And, one of the things that I wanted to focus on tonight is converting radio resumes into what I call the civilian resumes, because, a lot of times I know, especially when I'm on interviews and I try to explain to them what I did in radio, they really just have no clue of what it really means. So there's a lot of times to where we try to convert it into the civilian world, is what I call it, but it's hard to interpret it. And like you mentioned before, skills really pop out in a resume. And I think a lot of times we forget some of the skills that we use in radio, especially, our PR experience, right? And we do budgets and we do communications and marketing, and I think those are something that we need to include on the resumes as well. Just, do you find that when you're reading resumes, you don't understand sometimes the lingo, like what does this mean? And then they don't explain it enough. And then.
Well, where I work now, the one reason I took the job and decided to become a recruiter is number one, to help people like me who are in the same, which we're all in the same category, whether you're radio. I consider anybody in radio as in marketing communications because I think Marcom kind of covers the whole spectrum. You know, you could be an event planner, you could whatever you're doing is communications, and it's all marketing, really. So
Right.
when I look at a resume, I feel like I can use the language, but 9 times out of 10, when I call a candidate, I'll have them redo some of their resume because they don't even see themselves all the skills they have. Like you were talking about, if you've been in radio your whole entire career, market yourself as marketing communications. Don't make it about the title that you were, you know, a radio personality or whatever. Make it more of what did you do as a radio personality? And like you said, you know, you do budgets, you're doing events, you're working with, you're a project manager, you're doing marketing, you're probably doing social media, I'm sure you're writing some websites. Like one of the things I did when
I don't know what that was, but I think that was ringing back in the studio. But you're absolutely right. And a lot of times we forget. I know I've had to redo my resume 20 different times just because I've left out some of the things that I've done. And I know you and I were talking earlier today, and you had mentioned about keeping a log of the stuff that we have accomplished. And I think that is so important because, especially in the radio business, we get so tied up in our everyday lives doing what we do day to day that we forget some of the stuff that we've done. And by adding that onto our resume, it can only benefit us.
Well, one thing I did when my job was over in the corporate world is I went back through all of my planners and my calendars, and I was amazed at, like, because one company I stayed with for 7 years, and I had redone my resume. I forgot like 50% of the projects I worked on. I went back and looked through things. I was like, wow, I accomplished all of that. So if you have a journal or, you know, anything that you have, you know, especially calendars are helpful. Go back and look and just start making a bullet point list. Don't worry about layout or whatever. When you're first doing a resume, go by project, technical things, software. Just don't even worry about it. Just let it all out. And then you can kind of go back in and mold it and figure out kind of how you want to, what parts you want to highlight, what parts you do on LinkedIn, because that's another thing to make your resume a lot less clutter. If you have a LinkedIn profile, put everything on LinkedIn. And then on your resume, if you really want to highlight, you can put the door, and then at the bottom of the resume, you put, for a full resume, visit my LinkedIn profile and put the link on there.
Right. Exactly. So you mentioned about being in your job for 7 years. I was reading an article recently about that nowadays, I guess, that it's actually okay for you to show multiple jobs that you've had, that it's no longer, you know, that you have to show longevity in one single job, that it's actually, you know, looked upon to where you are exploring and you're open to new ideas. Is that true, you think, or?
I think it varies. I think it's just like the resume itself. You know, everybody will give you a different idea of what you should do or shouldn't do. That's why I just kind of keep it open. You have to be true to yourself, number one, and you want to project and, you know, highlight all the things you did that you want to do again, that you want to use in a different industry maybe. But as far as how long you stay somewhere, I don't think there are many. I can't think of anybody that hasn't recently been laid off that worked for a company for 30 years. Like, that just doesn't happen anymore. Like, the way our parents, you know, they don't understand the new workforce. It's like, oh my gosh, you were only there for 2 years. You're never going to get another job. But you do.
Right.
It's changed. The work environment is completely different than it used to be. So I don't think it hurts anybody at all. I think what people really look for, at least what I look for, is, you know, what your experience was in the past. Do you have the software skills? Are you willing to learn? What projects have you done? Like, you can keep moving forward in your career, even if you don't stay somewhere for a long time. You know, you have to keep in mind, too, everybody that's, you know, reviewing your resume has been where you are. Everybody's at least been laid off or been at a job where let's say you start a new job and you find out everything they told you was complete, total, BS.
Right.
We've all been there, so we'd understand, if somebody's only been in a job for 6 months, or there could be reorganization, a company gets bought. I'm sure in radio people understand that because I know there's been a lot of mergers.
Right, exactly.
Right, that whole landscape changed a lot with digital music. So I think it's understanding. I think you have to be honest on your resume, but I don't think it hurts you to be honest.
That leads me to another thing too, is we all want to be honest on our resumes. We all want to do that. But sometimes you kind of have to embellish, I guess, a little bit just to fit the description, because now it seems like companies are using the ATS, the automatic tracking system. So when you submit your resume, it's my understanding that it looks for keywords, and if it doesn't have those keywords, then the computer automatically rejects it, and the recruiter never even sees it.
Well, there's 2 parts to that. The first part is it used to be, I keep saying back in the day, so I'm just going to date myself, but like in the early 90s when you're looking for a job, keywords meant whatever crazy stuff was going on in the industry. And now it's not so much that. What I've learned on the other side as a recruiter is really let's say you do, I know, what is that noise?
It's back in the studio. I guess we have a caller coming in.
Trying to come through.
Oh, we have a caller trying to come through, so we're just setting this all up. So I guess. Okay, so Steve, my producer, do we want to put the caller on now? Should we do that?
Actually, I believe that caller is getting ready to call right back. Give 1 second here, and you'll be able to get that. Sorry.
Oh, okay. So I guess the caller is calling back. So as you know, we're just trying. There's the caller. It's like bring home, I guess. Can we answer it, Steve? See, I can see Steve back where he is, but hello? I'm looking for the call. Hello, I feel like Phil Donahue. Caller, are you there?
Hello, is this FNL?
Yes, it is.
All right, I'm having a hard time hearing you. I got an airplane going right over my head. Sorry, I'm outside right now. I just got off of work. Anyway, the reason I called in, I heard y'all talking about job interviews, this, that, and the other. I was wondering if you could give me a couple of tips on how not to get nervous with the job interview. I can always get an interview itself, right? But when I'm in the interview itself, I always get real nervous. I say dumb things to the boss. I get all frustrated or whatever. Can you give me any tips on how not to get so damn nervous?
Oh, that's a great question. I always get nervous. I'm always sweating before I go in for an interview.
I used to be the same way, and I would get like the sweaty palms, and I'm like, oh my gosh, they're never going to hire me because they're probably going to think I'm, got some kind of weird disease because I'm all shaky and weird. What I found the best way to overcome that is to turn it around mentally and make it you interviewing them. So when I show up for an interview, I have a notepad, and I have questions already written down, so I don't forget what I'm going to say.
So you're saying just kind of turn it around on them and basically you interview them, right?
Right. So whatever questions you thought you were going to ask me, you forget what you're going to say when you're really nervous when you go into an interview. So I take a pad of paper with a pen, so I have something to hold on to. So that kind of helps a little bit. But then I kind of have a script. So there's things that I want to ask them that I won't forget, and I take that notebook with me. And for some reason, that really helps. At least it helps me. Hopefully it will help me too. Do that now.
One of these things, well, that does help. I have done something similar to that. That's what my mom always used to tell me. I hope it don't offend anybody, but I always imagine whoever's interviewing me in their underpants.
That's like public speaking.
And I'm a truck driver, and I drive trucks for a living. And the last time that when I got this job, I was interviewed by this real nice lady named Perez. the whole time I was nervous, right? Real nervous. I just pretended like, and I ain't trying to offend anybody, but I just imagined that she had on a real nice set of lingerie and kind of put me at ease. I ain't trying to offend nobody. I'm just telling you what works for me.
Yeah.
It might work. It might work for you. Next time you're in an interview, no matter who it is, just imagine that they got on some real nice.
I'm feeling a little uncomfortable with this call right now.
I still get nervous no matter if I think of them as in their clothes or in their underwear or whatever. I still get real nervous, but I do appreciate the tips.
Yeah, I mean, rehearsing too, just kind of talking it out before you go. But I find the notebook and having my questions there are good because, the whole underwear thing could turn really scary depending on who's interviewing.
Well, I saw it on the Brady Bunch when I was a kid. That's part of where I got it. Like when Marsha was real nervous going to do a play or something like that. She was up on the stage, and she just imagined that all the judges had on their underpants.
You're really stuck on the underpants.
I figured, hey, if it's good enough for Marsha, it's damn well good enough for me. And it worked. Mrs. Perez hired me the very next day. Now I'm one of the top truck drivers in the country.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for calling into the show. You're the first caller that we've had.
All right. Well, I'm a first-time caller, and I've been listening to your program now for about a week or so, and I got to say that so far I'm a big fan. I've already told 2 friends about it, so keep up the good work.
Thank you very much, and keep on trucking.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Very cool. So there you have it. As a recruiter, what is something that you just get really frustrated about that you see and you're like, ugh, another resume, that what?
You know what? Honestly, the most frustrating thing.
Did I lose you?
Hello?
Oh, there, you got me?
I've got you now.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, I was just going to say one of the most frustrating things for me is really the same frustration I kind of had as a job seeker. I think it's the lack of knowledge sometimes of the people that are reading your resume. And one thing I did want to bring up, no matter what kind of job you're going for, when people say dumb down your resume, they don't mean make yourself with them. They mean write it journalistic style, meaning pretend like the person reading your resume knows absolutely nothing about your industry. So, like when you were talking about matching words, which I think is what we were talking about before the caller called in, what I was going to say different about that is, so let's say you use Constant Contact or something while you were doing some of your, like emailing out invites for some big event you had. It could be any kind of, I guess, celebrity, whatever, your concert, any kind of event. So you have that on your resume, Constant Contact. What I would do after Constant Contact is put in parentheses, MailChimp, Peloton, any other appropriate things will match. Because what happens, and it's so frustrating, is people will read the resume and see Constant Contact with me. They're looking for someone that knows MailChimp. Well, they're all the same thing. If you don't know about the industry, you're not going to know that that person's going to be able to handle that position. They're not going to know that software is the same. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Because what about when you submit your resume to a job that you know you're overqualified for, but you need a job? Do recruiters look at that and go, okay, this person just needs a job. They're way overqualified, so I'm not going to consider them? Because I've heard places to where I had to dumb down my resume, to be considered, or I don't know. It's like, it's almost like you have to be lucky.
I can't really hear you. I'm sorry.
Oh, how about now?
I can hear you now.
Okay. So what about when, you're overqualified for a position that you know that you're overqualified for, but you need a job. So a lot of times you might, apply for a job that maybe as an entry level when you're not an entry level type of person? Does a recruiter look at that and go, okay, this person's way overqualified, they're not going to stay with the company, so you don't give them a second look?
Actually, I call everyone because there's a place for everybody, number one. And number two, if you're working with a recruiter, you can be completely honest with them. And you can say, as a matter of fact, I complained to somebody who took a job and probably, of course, the money she didn't make. But her goals were to be closer to home, there for her kids when her kids got out of school, and make some extra money. She didn't even need the health care benefits.
Right.
To the city, wearing herself out. She had no time for her family. So it kind of worked out that way. So, I didn't take her out. I had to convince, the person that hired her that he should hire somebody.
Hey, it's a poor man's studio, I guess. We have another call coming in. I'm so sorry. Hello? Do we have the caller there? I feel like Phil Donahue. Hello, caller. Are you there?
Oh, I'm here. Yeah, how you doing?
Hello?
I can barely hear you. It sounds like you're in a tin can.
Oh, how's that?
Yeah, it ain't much better, but can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, you sound like you're on an AM radio or something like that. But anyway, my name's Jamal, and I just got a job as a manager of a furniture store, right? But the problem is, my supervisor making things hard on me my first week, saying that I'm late, but I was only about a minute late today. They're threatening that they're going to write me up. What's the best way I can handle this? Should I blame my other boss, or should I just let it ride, or what? Yeah.
That's a great question, Dina. Did you hear his question? Did we lose Dina?
Yeah, I'm back now. I went dark there for a little bit.
Did you hear his question?
No, I didn't.
His question was, he had just started a job and his supervisor's been complaining that he's been late, and today he was a minute late. And so how should he handle that? Was that your question, sir? I guess we lost him.
Caller,
are you there?
I guess we lost the caller.
Caller, are you there?
So, Dina, are you still there? I think we lost Dina too. Oh, that must be the caller calling back.
Caller, are you there?
Yeah, I think we got disconnected. Can you hear me better now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Better now? I'm having a hard time hearing the DJ.
Dina, can you hear him? This is crazy. Dina, can you hear him?
I can hear you now.
And you can't hear the caller?
I couldn't hear the caller. It just hung up on me. So I'm not sure.
Hey, it's live. So is the caller still there, Steve?
Yeah, actually, what I think I'm going to do is the problem is that every time I get one caller back over, I'm going to have them both go to queue and have Dina call back in.
Okay. I guess we're having a lot of calls come in tonight, which is good. So what we're doing is we're talking about resumes. Okay. I'm looking at Steve. I can see him in another window. He's back producing the show. So, Steve, who do we have on the phone? Do we have Dina still and the caller?
No, actually, we've got the caller calling back. So just give me 30 seconds here. Come on.
And Dina, are you still with me?
No, Dina actually hung up to call back. So you can kind of review on over.
Okay, so I guess we're waiting for the caller to call back. But hopefully tonight you've gotten some really good insight on resumes. It's such a hard thing to do, is trying to put out the right resume when you're looking for a job. Like, do we keep editing every single resume for every single job, or do we have a generic standard resume that we use that we could send out? And, you know, when I was speaking with Dina earlier, you almost have to customize your resume for the position that you're looking for. And I know it takes a lot of work, but, you know, looking for a job is a full-time job in itself. Also, too, I wanted to pass along, today I read an article. I was Googling about how do you not feel hopeless when you can't get hired, right? It's like we're looking for a job and it's so difficult, and you know, you go on a lot of interviews and they're always like, we'll call you, blah, blah, blah. So I Googled it, and there was an article that came up. I'll put it on my blog at nikkilandry.com. I'll put that on later today. But one of the things that they suggested was to go volunteer for a nonprofit. Volunteer your skills to a nonprofit. And number one, you can make connections. Number two, you can keep up with your craft. And you know what? Maybe you can make some connections. So I did that today. I actually called out a nonprofit. I Googled a nonprofit in my area, and this nonprofit came up, and I called and I said, hey, I would like to donate my services to you of my skills and what I can do. I do a lot of marketing and PR. And she was like, that's fantastic. And she thanked me, and she says, you know, she goes, I don't have anything for you to do right now, but I am the president of the HBA. So it was this organization. And she wasn't the president, actually. She was part of the HBA. And so, you know what? She's passing my resume out through the whole nonprofit organization throughout the country. So that's a start. You know, that's something. So you just got to keep plugging along. And, you know, oh, Larry Davis just said hello. Hi, Larry. So that's going to wrap it up for tonight. And hi, Larry. And I wanted to thank everybody for stopping by this newscast. I know last week and this week it's been kind of weird. We've been losing a lot of communications and coming in and out, but just bear with us. It's all new equipment, and we try to rehearse before we go on, but sometimes that's not always the case. But I just want to thank everybody again for joining us. And the video will download, and it will replay. Excuse me. It will replay back onto the Friggin News Lady Facebook page. So thank you guys, and have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and we'll see you into 2018. Make it great.